President Trump unveiled his national security strategy on Monday, laying out his administration's goals in his speech in Washington. In it, he labeled North Korea as a rogue regime and restated his administration's goal to denuclearize the Korean peninsula. The president also called out China and Russia. Here's some of the president's remarks.
We also face rival powers, Russia and China, that seek to challenge American influence, values, and wealth. We will attempt to build a great partnership with those and other countries, but in a manner that always protects our national interest. As an example, yesterday I received a call from President Putin of Russia thanking our country for the intelligence that our CIA was able to provide them concerning a major terrorist attack planned in St. Petersburg, where many people, perhaps in the thousands, could have been killed. But while we seek such opportunities of cooperation, we will stand up for ourselves and we will stand up for our country like we have never stood up before.
Matthew Kroenig is a professor at Georgetown University and senior fellow at the Atlantic Council. He joins me now from Washington. Welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be on. You
were in the room for the president's speech. What did you make of his remarks?
Well, overall, I thought it was pretty good. First, it was delivered cleanly. But second, it was consistent with the way the United States has thought about its role in the world and its national security strategy, I think, for several administrations. It talked about the threat posed by rival powers like Russia and China, talked about the threat from rogue states like Iran and North Korea, and talked about the threat from terrorist groups, and said the way to counter this is for the United States to be strong economically, strong militarily, and for us to promote our values.
Well, how specifically do you think that calling China and Russia rival powers will impact the relationships the United States has with those countries moving forward?
Well, I don't think it'll come as a surprise to Moscow and to Beijing. I think they've understood that they've been in a competition for some time. Russia invaded Ukraine a few years ago, has made nuclear threats against Europe and the rest of NATO. China taking contested territory in the South China Sea from U.S. treaty partners. So I think they're competing, and the United States has been a little slow to wake up. So I hope they take this as a warning that the United States is ready to defend its interest and to defend its allies.
Could singling out China have any effect on cooperation, you think, when it comes to dealing with North Korea?
It's a potential danger. We have been trying to get China's help to deal with North Korea. China's been unwilling to provide as much help as we would like. And so I think the strategy over the past several weeks actually has been to get a little tougher with China. For example, the Trump administration has put sanctions on Chinese banks doing business with North Korea. So again, I think the shift might be toward getting a little bit tougher with China, but all with the hope of eventually denuclearizing North Korea.
Well, unlike the Obama administration, President Trump did not identify climate change as a national security threat. Why do you think that is?
Well, climate change is a partisan issue. It's one that Democrats have been much more concerned about than Republicans. So I don't think it's a surprise that a Republican administration didn't talk about climate change as a major issue. And I should point out that there is a difference between the problem posed by climate change and whether it presents an immediate national security threat. And I think the argument that it's immediate national security threat is a little weaker. Some try to argue that it could lead to civil wars or wars over water resources and other things, and that's certainly possible. But we fortunately haven't seen much evidence of that just yet. But certainly longer term, it's an issue that needs to be addressed.
But hasn't the Pentagon named climate change as a threat multiplier?
The Pentagon has named it as a possible threat multiplier. But again, if I'm a political scientist by training. If you look at kind of the hard evidence of climate change contributing directly to national security issues, there's some logical arguments you can make as to why it's a problem, but no hard and fast evidence that I see yet.
With respect to the overall strategy, do you think that this document made things clearer for other nations trying to figure out where the Trump administration stands on national security issues?
I think it did. You know, Trump is the first president we've had who hasn't had experience in elected office, hasn't had experience in the military, and so there's been a question mark. Is he going to be a radical change from the past? Is he going to be more traditional? The truth is probably a mix of both, but I think this document stakes out a much more traditional foreign policy for the Trump administration, and so I think that helps to clear it up. The other thing I think it helps to clear up is that it's a little bit more realist in nature than our past national security strategy. You know, in 2010, Obama's national security strategy never once mentioned Russia and China as a possible threat. As we've talked about, this one does clearly call out the great power political competition between the U.S., Russia, and China.
All right, Matthew Kroenig in Washington for us. Matthew, thank you.